Browns continue preparations for the Cardinals, and Deshaun Watson spoke to the media today, Mary Kay. What did you take away from what he had to say?
You know, the biggest thing that occurred to me is the fact that he said that he jumped the gun and he made the decision to play against the Colts that day, told everyone he was ready. Ultimately, he was not ready. He learned a lesson from that, and this week he's going to let the experts weigh in and tell him exactly if he's ready to go or not.
Yeah, I did think that was interesting, Ashley, that he decided to kind of put that Indianapolis thing on him. And it all sort of makes sense, especially when you kind of see how it all played out with Kevin's decision to take him out after the hit and also to name P.J. Walker his starter so early in the week last week. It all sort of, it just makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, it was almost like the missing piece of the puzzle there. And him kind of talking about, it kind of goes back to everything we know about Deshaun Watson and his history with playing through injuries. Again, the guy who played on the torn ACL in college, the guy who rode on a bus to a game when he had a punctured lung and wasn't clear to fly back when he played with the Texans. So I think it all makes sense. Like, he's a super competitive guy. He thought he was going to be good enough to play, and then he takes that hit. He's on the ground. Kevin Stefanski says, nope, this experiment is done. It just was another piece of the puzzle, I think.
Now, something else to note here, Mary Kay, is that he didn't say whether he was going to play on Sunday. So he didn't give us much clarity as far as that is concerned. He didn't just come out and say he was or wasn't going to play. So I guess we still don't really know at this point.
No, and I asked him, going out there and practicing this week, does that mean that you're on track to play? And he said, no, it's part of the process. Maybe I'll play, maybe I won't. He wouldn't give any hints. And I think part of it is the fact that they're trying to keep the Cardinals guessing as long as they possibly can. There is some gamesmanship involved in this, and he's playing a role.
And listen, the Cardinals are doing the same thing. We don't know who's going to start for them, if it's going to be Clayton Tune or Kyler Murray. But again, Ashley, just no definitive answer on the starter this week.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I think there's some, like you said, uncertainty on both sides of the football here, a little bit for both teams. So it definitely is going to be interesting in the lead up and how, we heard from Jim Schwartz today about how they're, preparing for a team that they don't know who the starting quarterback is. He admitted, of course, it would be better to know, obviously, but you kind of have to roll with the punches and kind of use film and that teams have from this season already, even if it's with different guys, and prepare as best you can, no matter what team you're on.
Mary Kay, what did you think of Deshaun throwing today? Second day in a row watching him throw.
I think he looks pretty good, actually. Now, he's not just letting it rip out there. We know these are the early passing drills. So, he's throwing the ball 10, 15, 20, up to maybe 30 yards. But he's not really just letting it go. Now, Alex Van Pelt did tell us that he threw the ball farther downfield yesterday when we left practice, and I'm sure that happened again today. It's hard to handicap it. It's hard to guess because we thought he looked pretty good the Friday before the Colts game as well. So I think it's just a matter of what they all decide. And here's another thing that I do think. I think those two looming games against the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think those are playing a factor in this decision.
Yeah, and how could it not? I mean, those games are much more important than a game. Every game matters, but those games are certainly much more important than one game against the Cardinals, especially a one-win team. Ashley, the word of the week, though, is zip.
The word of the week is zip, and the question is, does Deshaun Watson have more zip on the ball today as opposed to yesterday? And again, I think all of that is really hard to gauge. I think for me personally, I don't want to put too much stock necessarily into anything he does at practice because it is so much different than a game. He talked about that after that Colts game, and you can't really replicate game speed and things like that. But again, I think it's better that he's out at practice as opposed to working out inside, rehabbing, all those things. It's at least another step in the right direction, regardless of if you think he had more zip on the ball or not.
And on the injury front, some things we're watching. Guys back at practice. Jed Wills was back and Dawand Jones back at practice. That was a big one we were watching, obviously, at right tackle. The Browns hopefully having their rookie right tackle back. But Mary Kay, the one we're keeping an eye on now, is Greg Newsome. He's dealing with a groin injury, and if he doesn't go, that means rookie Cam Mitchell would start in the slot in his place.
Yeah, and you know what? Greg's been having a nice season in the slot. He's been doing really well, playing both outside and in the slot. And as you mentioned, Cam is a rookie, so there's going to be a little bit of a drop off there. But they'll have to just do the best they can without Greg, who's been having a nice season.
And the good news is, Ashley, at least they have Martin Emerson to kind of handle those outside duties, which he normally does in place of Greg sometimes. So they're set out there. It's just a matter of Cam and how he handles playing inside.
Yeah, I definitely think, too, it helps that you might not find two better friends on this team than Greg Newsome and Cam Mitchell. They, of course, went to Northwestern together. They've been friends for years. So Cam has really taken to learning that spot from Greg and learning more about it. So I definitely think it helps, just given how close that room is in general, but especially those two guys if he does have to step in.
Okay, full coverage of the day, and we'll maybe get a few more answers on Deshaun Watson tomorrow. So just head to cleveland.com/Browns for full coverage of this team.